Good Tuesday to everybody. Thanks for clicking on to today's European Outlook. It is a busy one today because we have the October 2025 Outlook. As well as that, we're talking about a stormy end to the week. So, without further ado, be sure to hit that like button, share with your friends and family, and hit that subscribe button. It would be greatly appreciated. Now, we do have a series of low pressure systems moving in. That is going to top up the rain totals across particularly West Highland over the next few days. There is a yellow warning on the west coast for rainfall in excess of 100, 200 perhaps millimetres of rain falling in the upslopes, as we've got a series of systems moving in from a southwesterly direction and with a dangling front separating low pressure to the northwest, high pressure to the southeast. We are going to see heavy, persistent rain over the next few days. Obviously, we've seen flash flooding across parts of Iberia, the remnants of a hurricane, Gabrielle? Almost forgot there. That system obviously moved through the Azores, generating a wind gust in excess of 115 miles per hour over the higher terrain of the island archipelago. We did see heavy rainfall, so some damage, some flooding. That system then moved into the Iberian Peninsula, generating some big waves along the Portuguese coast, for example. And then as the remnant energy crossed over the high terrain of central Spain, then we started to see that system reinvigorate, tapping into that really warm waters of the Western Mediterranean, and we've seen some significant flooding. I'll try and show some images of that in tomorrow's video, so stay tuned for that. So, quite an active end to the month of September. Well, I suppose it's not too bad today, actually. We've got kind of cloud and outbreaks of rain. I suppose it is actually quite a quiet end to September. Relatively mild during the course of today. But then we are going to start to see a real uptick. It was really, I meant to say that kind of the first couple of days of October is going to start to turn increasingly unsettled, and then we will see things turn even more unsettled as the remnants of Humberto, or at least a piece of that anyway, will regenerate and deepen rapidly as that system makes an approach at the UK and Ireland. Now, the latest ECMWF shows the first batch of weather moving in through the course of tonight, and then quickly followed by more wet weather. Now, you've got this boundary here separating low pressure and quite a substantial trough embedded within the North Atlantic atmosphere, and then we've got a fairly decent high over the continent. Very unsettled conditions down across parts of Italy, much of the Balkans, Greece, Turkey. Quite an unsettled and rather cool situation here. In fact, let's quickly, while we're on the subject, look at the temperature anomalies at 850 here over the, particularly, well, much of Central and Eastern Europe, in fact, seeing some notably chilly conditions. These are the 850 millibar temperature, so generally 5,000 feet, and the anomaly, should I say, rather than the temperature itself. But you can see here, notably chilly air in the mid levels of the atmosphere. Look at how warm this air mass is on the southern flank, and that's the reason why we've got a jet stream in excess of 230 miles per hour expected, early on Friday morning. So this is a Friday at the 3rd of October, 6 UTC. Notice here the small bundling of energy here, and the sharp gradient here. Remember, this is the anomaly, but the much colder than average on the north side of the both the low and the jet, and then unusually warmer underneath that. This is kind of classic when you've got tropical systems that are lifting out of the tropics into the mid latitudes. It engages with the jet stream, strengthens the jet, and we see some pretty interesting contrasts. So you can see here, these are the actual 850s according to the GFS, or the ECMWF on Friday. And if we skip quickly back, these are the temperatures at 850 here over eastern areas of Europe here. So we're talking about sub-freezing air at 5,000 feet. incorporating much of Eastern Europe, anywhere from north portions of Finland all the way down into the Balkan region here. And with this cold air, you've got the ingredients here for rapid rising motion within the atmosphere. Obviously, an area of low pressure and heavy precipitation, heavy snowfall in the higher mountains, for example, as well. So there is a lot of things going on. So let's skip back to the overview here of the ECM and then play through. So this is the system that moves through then during the course of Thursday. So we've got a system tonight into tomorrow, moves through. Then we've got another system moves through during the course of Thursday. And then you notice here the pressure drops rapidly from kind of say, what about kind of upper 990s and millibars here. This is by the time we reach midnight Thursday into Friday. Not a particularly deep center, but with all the ingredients coming together, we see a rapid drop in pressure down in 982, 987, 980, 972, 966. Each 6 hour period, we're seeing a drop considerably down to 960 millibars. This is by the time we reach Friday the 3rd at 15. So going from midnight to 3 p.m. in the afternoon, we've dropped from essentially the mid 990s to 960 millibars. So this is rapid cyclogenesis. And according to the ECM model, and there's going to be uncertainty with regards to the exact track. Some models are taking it further north, such as the Met Office, the R-Page, even the ICON model. The ECM and the GFS, certainly according to the latest runs anyway, sees this system essentially at its deepest point and pushes close to, if not through, the central belt of Scotland here. Pressure down to 954 millibars here. Very strong winds, heavy rainfall coming in from the east on the north side of the low, and very strong winds and heavy precipitation coming in on the southern flank to the south of the low here. So this is the track is going to be critical in terms of exactly where the heaviest rainfall, strongest winds, etc. is going to be. But you see here that essentially with a strong high over western portions of Russia, this system is going to then kind of slow down in its eastward progress as it crosses the UK. That could accentuate the effects as well of wind and rain. And then eventually what happens is it starts to drop south into the Low Countries. Still pressure down in 977 millibars. So a notable system even for the near continent, for example. And then it looks as if higher pressure tries to build in. We've got another system that will try and cross over, but it looks as if higher pressure on the whole is going to try and become a little bit more established. Then the ECM hints at something higher pressure building into the central Atlantic, perhaps northwesterly flow and something cooler as well. But then we go back to this very zonal low pressure over high pressure scenario towards the middle portions of the month. Looking at the Met model here, I want to quickly show you the pressure of this model, somewhat different to what the GFS and the ECMWF are suggesting. It's taking the low at 948 millibars to the north of the UK mainland. Then if we put on the winds, you can see here wind gust in forecast. You can see here generally the centre with a lack of winds beneath the centre of the low. But look at the south and southeast flank of the centre, where you've got the core of strongest winds. You're talking about winds in excess of 90, 100 mile per hour. That is conceivable given how low the pressure is expected to be, by the way. So, yeah, and then we've got generally 70, 80 mile per hour winds here, probably close to 90, passing and transferring eastwards across the much of Scotland. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised even through the central belt, even though the centre of the low is off the northwest of both the Outer Hebrides and the mainland. We still wouldn't be surprised if we've seen 70 plus mile per hour winds rattling through the central lowlands here, because you've got that natural gap between the South Highlands and the southern uplands here. You've got that natural corridor where winds can accelerate through this portion of the country. Lighter winds the further south you go. However, if we put on the the winds according to the ECMWF. We'll look at the GFS in just a second here. But let's put on the winds and see what it is indicating real quick. So wind gusts. You can see here quite gusty winds here over the next few days, thanks to areas of low pressure pushing through. Then as we move into the day, Friday, we've got another system moving through, so that's the second feature. Then in comes the storm itself, the remnants of Humberto, and we've got winds in excess of 200 kilometers per hour. That looks as if the center of the system looks to pass very close to Donegal on the northwest corner of the Republic of Ireland. We've got very powerful winds on that southwestern flank. Now let's quickly convert those winds just out of interest here. Convert kilometers per hour to miles per hour and see. So 204 is 126 miles per hour. That would likely be offshore, of course, but nevertheless, very powerful winds indeed. And then if we skip through, you can see here that the core strongest winds nowhere near the north. If you notice here, it's through central and southern Scotland, northwest England, across a good chunk of Northern Ireland, probably the Republic of Ireland as well. Winds in excess of 154, which is, you're still talking 95 miles per hour. So this is going to be potentially quite a dangerous storm. A wild open to October for sure. You can see here strong winds then transferring to the west coast here through the North Channel into the Irish Sea, northwest facing portions of both Northern Ireland and the Republic of Ireland, northwest England, West Scotland, North Wales, still potentially seeing damaging 80 plus mile per hour gusts with this overview here. Now let's have a quick look at the GFS real quick because there is a lot to get through. I want to try and rattle through it as quick as I can. GFS model here showing stronger winds now across the south of the Republic of Ireland here, up through the Irish Sea, for example. Core of strongest winds generally kind of 154 at its peak, which is Galway, for example. It could be the epicenter of some of the strongest winds from this system. Looking at the Icon model then, and you can see here a very different solution altogether. Winds in excess of 172 kilometers per hour. The focus of the strongest winds here is along the north and northeast portion of Scotland here. Very powerful northwesterly winds, if you notice here. We skip back here, you notice that the core of worst conditions is later than what the other models have suggested here. So there's still a tremendous amount of uncertainty. We're still a few days off here, but it all depends on this transition from tropical to extratropical, whether the interaction it has with the jet stream crossing over from warm to cold side of the jet, the timing of that, the orientation of the dip in the jet. There is so many factors to take into consideration here. So it is all very much subject to question, uncertainty, so on and so forth here. So that is that with regards to this upcoming stormy Saturday scenario. Let's have a look then at what has been posted just in the last 15 minutes on marvoganweather.com. So you can click on this. Oh, just clicked on the wrong one. You can click on this. I'll leave a link in the description below. I'm running behind time here, unfortunately. But let's go back to the appropriate article. And like I say, you can check this out at your leisure. So, October 2025, what can we expect? Following a September of two halves with a low pressure dominance replaced by high pressure dominance through the second half, October's opening days shall grow increasingly unsettled, even stormy, thanks to a series of lows and fronts dangling, separating low pressure to the northwest, high pressure to the southeast. Significant rain warnings are in effect, is expected across western areas of Scotland over the next week or so, coupled with periods of gales. Then storm force conditions are expected this upcoming weekend here. So this is the RPH model in terms of forecast, precip, and you can see very much the focus is in the upslopes of western Scotland. And ECMWF printing out some big rainfall totals upwards of 282 millimeters of rain over the next couple of weeks in the first half of the month. So obviously I've already explained the uncertainty in terms of track, depth of low, where the strongest winds are going to be focused, etc. So you can just quickly skip through this. Beyond, so the problem that I've got here is high levels of uncertainty. I do think we're going to see high pressure building in for a period of time once this stormy spell passes this upcoming weekend. So, like I've said, I believe high pressure will build back in for a period of time, but there's high levels of uncertainty whether the high builds northwest or flattens out in terms of the flow, providing a more zonal westerly component with a more active tropical Atlantic, and that is likely to continue through the month of October, by the way. With storms transporting tropical air north, it's very difficult to pinpoint particular pattern mid to late month. So with the tropical systems roaming the Atlantic, likely transferring warmth northwards, it's very difficult to know exactly how the atmosphere is going to behave. Looks as if we are going to have a phase 2-3 of the MJO at least through the first half of the month. That tends to keep things rather mobile, potentially stormy across western areas of Europe when you've got the upward motion over the Indian Ocean. I can see higher pressure potentially building towards Greenland, perhaps sending Arctic brand air down into Europe, including the UK and Ireland mid-month. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see higher pressure. The ECMWF, for example, is trying to build high pressure over the Atlantic, perhaps sending cold lobes into the UK and Ireland towards the middle portions of this month. With a likely continued uptick in tropical activity, we could even see a negative AO-NAO setup later in the month. It depends upon the drivers such as the MJO, which through the first half of the month appears to remain over the Indian Ocean, perhaps maritime continent, with further rise in motion over the Atlantic, which will keep the lid off the Atlantic in terms of the tropics, perhaps keeping things active. So the above phase 2-3, let's go back and show you quickly what that is. So you can see here the green's upward motion, orange's subsidence here, sinking motion within the atmosphere. And there's nothing really showing. There is a little area of green over Mexico, but with this lack of subsidence over the Atlantic, that would suggest to me that we will continue to see the possibility of an active October in terms of the tropics. But the main bulk of rising motion is over the Indian Ocean. So that would suggest a weak phase 2-3 of the MJO. That tends to support a more low pressure dominated pattern into Western Europe. When you've got a trough north, ridge south, you've got that mobility coming in from the Atlantic. This is the ECMWF solution for now, Monday the 29th. This is actually Tuesday the 30th. But this is the upcoming 30-day period according to the ECM extended. And you can see here a deep trough over Greenland and Iceland region. Is extending over the UK and Ireland, which may try to push the storm track further north then. But bear in mind, there is going to be variability within this 30-day mean. In terms of precipitation, it's going for a wetter than average signal, very wet across western portions of Scotland and Ireland, for example, here, very dry, France and Iberia. Temperature-wise, it's looking average or thereabouts across the UK and Ireland for this upcoming 30-day period. Now, the GFS ensemble, very similar to the ECM, shows a deep negative Iceland and around Greenland here, particularly the southeast of Greenland. And we've got quite strong ridging extending from the Azores up into the UK and Ireland here. In terms of wetness, it's looking wet across the north, somewhat drier down towards the south of the UK here, very dry Iberia and France, if you notice here. So this is very much suggesting a high pressure down towards Iberia, low pressure up towards Iceland and the UK in between. In terms of temperature anomaly, very similar to the ECM in terms of average, even slightly below average. The ECMWF monthly shows the negative. So again, very similar with a negative to the north, high pressure to the south here over Iberia, very wet look according to the ECMWF. So you see this kind of wet signal showing up for the month of October. The difference here is the CFS V2 quite often shows a warm bias, it must be said, but you can see here a warm signal compared to around average. So the CFSV2 a good bit warmer compared to the GFS and the ECM extended. So this is going to get fine tuned, but I wanted to publish this before heading off to work, which will be fairly soon. The overall verdict for October, like with September, a lot of variation can be expected throughout the month, with stormy spells followed by quiet, mild, cool. You get a bit of everything, is really what I'm suggesting. Though you're probably thinking you're kind of sitting on the fence with that, Mark. You're kind of suggesting everything. But it's extremely difficult to pinpoint this month in terms of the overall ideas here, with a chance of notable chill perhaps towards the middle of the month. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see the AO, NAO going negative here, again, induced by the tropics. So overall, near average month temperature-wise, with likely wetter than average for much of the UK and Ireland, into Scandinavia as well. So average temperatures, it could lean slightly warmer than average, it could lean slightly cooler than average, and this is for the UK, Ireland, and probably Scandinavia as well. In terms of warmer, drier, Iberia, France, potential flood events for Central and Southern Europe and into the Balkan region. So that's the overall quick analysis with regards to what I think is going to happen during the month of October coming up, which starts tomorrow, of course. Hope you're enjoying the varied content here on this channel. Like and subscribe, and I'll see you tomorrow with more. We'll look more in detail at this upcoming stormy period. So stay tuned for that. Enjoy the rest of your Tuesday. Bye for now.